Roast, the City News Sunday Roast. You know, when Jeff Kennett, the former Victorian President, Premier rather, when he makes a statement, usually people do tend to listen.
They do.
And even years after his premiership ended, he's still quite vocal, despite the fact he's a Hawthorn supporter. But he's recently made controversial comments about that people working from home should have their salaries reduced by an amount similar to the amount of money they save by being able to work from home. So, you know, you can canvass this around and throw this up and up the flagpole and see who salutes. And there's not too many people will salute that flagpole. But somebody who can sort of drill down into this quite effectively is Jonathon Woolfrey, who's managing partner at Talenting. And I think he's joining us on the line from Perth. Good morning, Jonathon.
Good morning. How are you?
All right. You're over in the West?
Yes, I sure am.
I hope you come back to Australia one day. It'll be really good to have you. But all right, that's enough of that.
Jonathan, has Jeff Kennett got a point?
He doesn't. Look, I think that's a bridge too far the way that Jeff's put it. But as you guys know, he does it for the controversy first and the practicality second, I would suggest. But look, what he's saying and what I'm thinking in what I do with businesses in the human resource world is that employers are a little bit frustrated from time to time where employees seem to rule the roost and demand what they want out of the employment relationship. But yeah, what he said I think is probably a bridge too far.
But what he's saying is it's a bold statement, but behind it is the logic that there are other people who are compelled to attend work and therefore they incur the costs of transport, parking, lunch at the local lunch spot. They incur costs that somebody working from home does not, and he characterised that as being unfair.
Yeah, look, he's right from a technical sense. Workers don't incur those costs, and others do. I think throughout working history, people have had different kinds of pros and cons to the way that they work. Whether they have to come into work or work in different locations, work remotely, etc. That's always been the case. Working from home makes that a little bit more pronounced for certain groups. But what I think and what I notice is that this kind of does happen. People will accept jobs with more flexibility, including the ability to work from home, for lower salaries, lower prestige in an organisation, for a whole range of reasons. So people will accept lower salary to work in that kind of environment where they don't have to go in. But I think if you went to someone and said, we're going to reduce your pay for this reason, I don't think it would go down very well. And legally, I don't think it would be possible as well. So there's a little bit of truth in it.
I think COVID has a lot to answer for. It's changed a lot of, I can say lifestyles, obviously, but certainly work lifestyles, where, yes, there is that flexibility these days. There is that option to actually work from home if you so desire, and it can be quite mutually agreeable.
Yeah, for sure. And something, if you don't mind me adding in there as well, like what he did leave out there is that it actually costs employers a lot of money to provide an office for employees as well. Estimates, direct costs, rent for that space is $10,000 per employee, give or take, in different organisations, plus then there's all the other infrastructure employers need to centre around there. So I know employees and perhaps their unions would start saying, all right, well, if that's the way you want to play it, how about you look at how much money you save as an employer by not having to have a desk for me, and I might get some of that back as well.
Well, there is another dimension there too, Jonathan, that is, and it was brought up, I think, before the election by the former Prime Minister, that he wanted to get people back into the office because look at all those coffee shops, look at all those local restaurants that were suffering because people were not going into all of that sort of thing. The local economies in these places, they were suffering because people were staying at home.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is a difficult one because, those businesses that have set up, often small businesses to centre around where workers go to and where they congregate, yeah, look, that is very tough for those situations. I think the business still occurs, give or take, across suburban areas in local coffee shops and things like that where people do want to get out of the house when they're working from home. And my anecdotal advice and evidence is that, some suburban coffee shops are going through the roof, gangbusters, because people, in those high density suburbs and things like that. So I think in due course, now it's very difficult for small businesses, particularly that have set up for, a pre-COVID world of work that's in a CBD or something to that effect. I think in due course, those those opportunities still exist. They just exist in different ways in different areas, and maybe some different kinds of services as well. Those bigger coffee shops where people can go and work, take their laptop and work because they're sick of working from home as well. So there's a change, absolutely, and it is difficult. I know what the former Prime Minister and I know a number of premiers across Australia have said the same thing, that CBDs have generally been the heart of those kind of areas. But I think in due course, like as we figure out where people are working more, because it is a way of the future, like it or hate it, things will change and we'll get used to where those businesses should be.
In the past week, the NAB struck an industrial agreement with its staff, and it includes, Rod, capacity to work from home.
Oh, yeah.
The news reportage didn't dwell too much on how much this was or how it related to individuals, but it's now finding its way into awards, so it's going to be this hybrid work process is going to continue. But I was wondering, Jonathon, the difficulty for employers, when you say it's like $10,000 for per head, roughly, give or take, a desk. When the lease comes around every 5 years, you'd kind of go, should we downsize? Should we provide hot desks? Should we provide fewer desks? Because the opposite of that is going to be employees wanting payment for setting up home offices, surely. Yeah, no, that's definitely the case. And employers have obligation to make sure that they do set up their office at home well, in a productive way and in a safe way as well. So that is a cost that employers do need to factor into it. I think what they're doing, you refer to the NAB, a lot of the banks are in the press a lot lately because they're the ones right at the forefront here in the way that they're really trying to structure very large workforces to balance out the flexibility that some want versus some consistency across the whole country. So what they're doing is, and a lot of banks are doing this, I'm aware, and they're all taking different approaches. The Commonwealth Bank have required everyone to essentially come back into the office at least 50%. ANZ have gone the opposite way. NAB are figuring it out in their way. Is a lot of the banks are actually setting up their physical offices in a way that it's not so much here's your desk, those hot desking collaborative spaces, so that they can probably reduce their physical costs, but actually spend more on making sure employees are equipped at home so that at best it's cost neutral. They may save money one way or the other, but so that they're not incurring double costs. So that's really important. One of the people I like to listen to on the future of work put it this way. He says employers now these days are expected to earn the commute. So what he meant by that was that if you want people to come into the office, it's very, it goes against the grain for an employee when they have to drive in, pay for parking, and bear in mind the cost of living for employees with inflation and all those kind of things is significant for the majority of employees. The CEOs don't have this problem generally. They earn enough where, a 5 to 10% increase in cost of living they can manage. But everyday employees are incurring these extra costs as well, and they really look forward to saving on parking, fuel, transport, local eating. But what happens is, earn the commute, going back to that point that I was trying to make there, is like, okay, if I'm going to have to incur all these costs driving to the office, but all I do is sit at a desk and do exactly the same work, the office doesn't even have the facilities that I do at home, then, bigger employers, banks, things like that are actually putting in place facilities going, look, we want you to enjoy coming into work. We know you're not going to come in full time. We have these collaborative spaces. We've got great facilities and things like that. So what they're doing is reducing costs, making offices more fit for purpose that are more fun and vibrant, workplaces and things like that, and saying, okay, and when you are working from home, we'll set you up and make sure it's safe and you can have that kind of balance at home.
Wow. Very good analysis. Jonathon, thanks so much for getting up early for us this morning over there in Perth. And we do appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.
And all the best.
My pleasure. Great to be with you. I'm glad you didn't ask what football team I support.
Yeah, what football team do you support? I forgot that.
Well, it's Fremantle Dockers, so we had a tough game yesterday, but
it could be worse. You could be West Coast Eagles.
I know. Well, dare I say, I'm glad we're taking perverse joy in that.
Good on you, mate.
See you, man. Bye.
Thanks, Jonathon. Jonathon Woolfrey, who's a human resources expert and also managing partner with Talenting over there in the West.
HR.